Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Season 4. I'm Jack, joined by my guest,
Mr. Solis.
And we are back here today. Last time you saw us, we were covering AEW Wrestle Dream, and like we mentioned there, we are back here today to cover WWE Fastlane. And the reason I slowed up on that right now is because to my left, Trey Turner just hit a home run to give the Phillies the lead in the bottom of the fifth, so I got semi-distracted. I'll do my best as the host to stay focused, but as I told Mr. Solis, I'm double screening right now. I got my Phillies game on, and I'm here podcasting with Mr. Solis.
He's got his jersey. Is that a Phillies hat?
Yup, Phillies hat that I've had since 2018. And
oh my!
If you see it in person, you could definitely tell I've had it since 2018.
I hope you've watched it a few times since 2018.
Oh, I have, but they want to get me a new one, and today I was thinking, I'm like, man, when should I get a new one? I was like, maybe I should do a thing of I get a new one once they win a World Series.
Ooh, with maybe the World Series logo on the side.
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, I'm surprised to not hear you say it, in the intro. What's the title of this podcast?
Yeah, I always slip up because of, being so used to the previous 3 years, I sometimes slip up. But yes, it's the Call It Anything podcast.
The Call It Anything podcast.
Yeah.
Got it. And you know why I wanted you to stamp that? We may have a couple of new listeners. I was talking to some teachers on my way out, and I said, hey, I'm going to go record a podcast with a former student. They want me to share the link. They want to hear us talk. My ninth grade teacher asked, is it about wrestling or about wrestling? And I was really excited he asked. His dad, I think, has schooled him on the world of wrestling with no G and an apostrophe.
I hope none of them are Braves fans.
I don't know how they stand when it comes to baseball, MLB.
I also hope none of them are Dodger fans after what happened.
Well, listen, I'm talking to you, and even though, underneath that Phillies jersey, you got some obnoxious Bruin something, and I can look past it. I won't judge you for that. Or at least, I won't judge you too harshly. Or actually, I won't. Jack, we can be friends.
But how have you been, sir? It's not been quite some time, but obviously, as we've seen in the past, a lot can happen in a week's time.
It's true. And, we all had a very, very well appreciated 4-day weekend last weekend. They call it fall break. People know October is just the worst, the most frustrating, the busiest month of the semester. And in the spring, it's March, whichever month doesn't have spring break. And so we're in the thick of it. Proud of my team, and we're doing this day by day. Oh. I only say it because it's funny, but tomorrow, Jack, it's Friday the 13th. So, I'm going to be on edge. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good so far. I think I mentioned it in the last podcast, but I didn't get no fall break, but I technically did get a break because 2 of my classes got canceled for that day. But so far, I've been doing pretty good. It was the time for the sort of first big assignments to start getting turned in and all that. So far I've done pretty well. I've gotten real good feedback from my professors on how to improve, but I'm happy so far. I've been doing good in my math class as well.
Nice.
The last unit we were doing, I wasn't too confident. It was taking me quite some time to finish the homework, and I wasn't too confident going to the test, but I still passed.
Nice. What was the unit on? Do you remember?
I can't remember the title, but it was basically a lot of it was I'm trying to remember. It was basically it would tell you this factory produces a chair and it takes 1 hour of assembly, 2 hours of finishing, 1 hour, or I forget, there's another thing, but it would be you were supposed to take those sort of numbers and kind of come up with how to maximize profit or production, how to minimize, or what would be the minimum amount of time they had to operate to get the minimum amount of I think expense, it was stuff like that.
I got you. Maybe something called optimization.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. math class of yesteryear. Maybe Santa Cruz covered some problem where it's like, I have this much fence. How much space can I surround this? What's the dimensions of a yard? The biggest yard I can make with this much fence.
Yeah.
But college level. Sounds awesome.
Yeah, I've been doing real well with that. And other than that, I've just been doing well. Obviously, keeping up with baseball and football. And just been, having fun, especially when it comes to wrestling. Been keeping up with it, even through the busy times.
Even through goodness, we are spoiled, Jack, with how much wrestling there just is to consume.
Yeah. And wrestling to consume. WWE Fastlane, which, as I mentioned to Mr. Solis, I didn't watch when it happened because I was watching the Phillies. But that still didn't stop me from going back, watching these matches so we could cover them here today.
Let's go.
All right, so we started off the night with Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes facing off against the Judgment Day for the tag titles.
Jack, what do you think of Jay's new intro song?
I find it funny at times.
Me too.
And I just find it I mean, obviously we had that like 1 year where he was on his own, but it just feels so odd to see him on his own.
It's true. It's absolutely true. I was thinking about that, like getting ready for the podcast, right? Like he and his brother split up like true in the truest sense of the word, right? But we didn't get the brother feud right away, right? So like it's really interesting to see them both in their own worlds, in their own stories. And Jay's song where he goes, now it's just me, Oos, right? I was like, I couldn't stop laughing. And I was thinking about it. But you know what I thought about too? I thought, you know what? If I think about wrestlers of yesteryear and I think about The Rock, think about The Rock song, Jack. What was being said throughout the guitar riffs of his song?
I'm trying to think of, I know it was like some of his catchphrases. I'm trying to remember for the most part, but I can't really remember.
It's basically just him saying, The Rock said.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Rock, and like you go, how much different is that to Jay's? Like really, The Rock song was just as dumb. He was just too cool for us to notice.
Yeah. And speaking of too cool for us to notice, it just does seem a bit. It does seem a bit odd for Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes to be tagging together, considering that it's not even like, I don't know, like 6 months ago that he was one half of the men that costed him the championship at WrestleMania.
And that's the story they've been telling on Raw. Kevin Owens remembers, Sami Zayn remembers, but he's more forgiving. And this was an interesting match to set up.
Yeah. And, speaking of all the people that remember, I saw people when Drew McIntyre was being the same. A lot of people were like, just playing around and being like, "Oh, Drew, stop being so sensitive." And then people started posting the clips where like they were beating him up with a chair, and they were like, "You want him to forgive this?"
Yeah.
And that's something I sort of like, is keeping that level of continuity in the sense of like, just because someone turns babyface doesn't mean that they're going to immediately be accepted as a babyface. We're seeing something similar on AEW with MJF, where a lot of people are like, is he being a babyface, or is just this all, classic him, it all being a ploy,
So what'd you think of the match?
I was actually very surprised at times by Jay and Cody's chemistry.
I agree.
Like it definitely caught me off guard a bit, and I also I liked a lot of the what's the word? I liked a lot of the creativity they had with hitting like certain tag moves, like the 1D into the Cody cutter that they did at like towards the end of the match.
I think on Raw they dubbed it the Cody.
Oh man,
I agree.
I'm trying to remember like other spots.
The spots that resonated with me the most come after the Judgment Day start interfering.
Yeah. There's obviously the spot where they try and use the briefcase, and you see Jay get hit with it, and he still kicks out of it.
Yes. Also see JD McDonough swing at Cody, miss, almost called him Archer, Damian Priest square in the leg.
Yeah, and that continues to build that feud of Damian Priest not liking JD.
Right.
But I guess the biggest surprise to me was the fact that they actually got the win. They beat the Judgment Day for the titles.
Yep, I was super surprised for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it because I was like, this just seems so random, but I guess, I'm willing to see where they go with this storyline, especially because it seems like they're trying to tell that story of like, Candy's different people sort of come to accept Jey Uso as a babyface.
And like, it doesn't take me a lot to get like to accept that this team could win the titles, like teaming together for the first time, because Jay is such an accomplished tag team wrestler's brother. You know what I mean? Like, I think I can accept this because if this takes a certain skill, he has it a lot. And, kudos to WWE's Instagram page for reminding me how often Cody Rhodes has held the tag team titles. You're like, okay, both these guys know how to do this. Cody Rhodes was the hot tag of the match, right? Like, everyone's really excited for him to come in. So, that, it was a well-fought tag team match.
That, and I guess you could also say, technically, even though they spent quite some time as a faction, Finn Balor and Damian Priest aren't technically tag guys you would consider, They're sort of...
Yes, and, I think their success, too, has to be, like, almost entirely attributed to Rhea and Dom, right? And JD, and this is an instance where it blew up in their face.
Yeah. But moving on to our next match, we have another, this one's a trios match more so. We have the LWO, who has a mystery partner to later be revealed, facing off against Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits.
Mm-hmm.
This has sort of been an interesting, story and sort of faction with the Street Profits showing a more aggressive side at times. There is still the bit of confusion in the sense of, they come out to their usual theme, but they're supposed to be this more, aggressive tag team under Bobby Lashley's sort of a leadership.
Yeah. Yeah, are they cool and fun-loving? Or, because, Lashley is not cool and fun-loving, right? So, are they cool and fun-loving, or are they, hard and serious?
Yeah. But, what'd you think of this match, sir?
This one, at some point in this match, I'm thinking, ooh, it's going to be a long night, Jack. I know that there's at least one other tag match down the line, right? It's a lot of tags.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I did sort of like that, easy storytelling of they're at a disadvantage 2-on-3 and all that.
Yes.
The most confusing part was when the third man was revealed, but he didn't have his usual theme that you would know him by.
No, so out comes WWE, alumni, returning superstar Carlito to a song nobody recognizes. Yeah. I wonder if they lost the rights to it. It's just
they used it at Backlash a couple months ago.
It's true, and it worked really well there. I don't know. Maybe I hope he sticks around for this one. I hope this is him officially coming back, and maybe he wants to move away. Maybe they want him to move away from his previous character of I spit in the face of people who don't want to be cool, which is absurd. Why would you want to move away from that?
Who knows? But he comes in, gets a massive pop.
Yep.
He makes quick work of the Street Profits and picks up the win.
Yeah, and good. I mean, him next to Bobby Lashley, you're like, whoa. I knew he got bigger, but golly.
Yeah, he looked pretty big. But overall, I would say a decent match, fulfills the sort of story elements.
It's weird. Why was Carlito not there at the beginning of the match?
That's what I wonder too. I don't know. That's the only weird part of the story to me is you saw on SmackDown Ray say, I'm gonna call a friend, and it's why did it take so long for said friend to make his arrival?
if he's a returning, if he's returning, right, and like you think he wants to stay for the longer haul, like in canon, is it a good look to show up late to a show?
Is it a good look to show up late for your partners?
And you know what? Like, I'd hate for Lashley and the Street Profits to lose so early into their union, but an LWO win is a LWO win, and they are in desperate need of them. So kudos to them for picking it up here.
Yeah, and plus it could help build the story of like Lashley sort of blaming the Street Profits for not being so aggressive.
Not aggressive enough.
Yeah, not aggressive enough. Like wanting them to bring it out.
Quit playing with your cups and your smoke, right?
Yeah. I believe it was in between this match and the next one that we saw, I guess what you would consider a surprise between this episode and our last one, because I don't think the news had broken yet at that point. Jade Cargill is now with WWE.
It's true.
Very surprising.
What do you think, Jack, about them giving her the Gable Steveson treatment of like, look, it's her. She's here.
Yeah, I think it's very cool that they've like hyped her up as much as they have, especially because, she's very deserving of it, Obviously, I hope to see her continue to improve in the ring. We saw during like the latter part of her AEW run that like she was improving. I know her final match against Statlander was very well received from the crowd,
Yeah.
So I just hope to see her continue to improve, and I hope, the best for her here,
I certainly do too. So that's why I'm like wondering about this approach to introducing her to the audience via this like, I'm driving into the show. I travel in my gear. Like she doesn't interrupt the match. She doesn't come out to the ring, right? It's like, like I said, like Gable Steveson, just look who it is. But maybe you're right. Maybe this is setting her up for future success.
Yeah, that is my only complaint, is the fact that everyone's always in gear, and it just like, even in situations where it doesn't make sense for them to be in gear, it's like, you're coming out of your car, why are you in full gear already?
Like you're gonna wrestle tonight, right?
Yeah, well, like people thought she was coming out during the Charlotte match.
I thought so too. Well, hey, speaking of, right, the next match is certainly something you're not gonna have any complaints about, Jack. It's a triple threat WWE Women's Championship match. Champion Io Sky versus Asuka and Charlotte Flair.
Yep. Very reminiscent feelings of when it happened down in NXT. Just replace Asuka with Rhea Ripley, in the sense of, we do not want Charlotte to win.
I don't want Charlotte to win. I'm so frustrated. Hey, and get this, Jack. Like, I don't know why my memory's so bad, but commentary reminds me that it was a triple threat at SummerSlam, too. Straight out Asuka for Bianca Belair. And I'm like, why? And, golly, Jack, it seemed like the women even, too, were like, no, Charlotte. Like, Io and Asuka were desperately trying to have that one-on-one match that both you and I want.
Yeah. And that's something like my dad mentioned too. He was like, make sure to tell Solis this match was really going great until Charlotte decided to interrupt constantly. And there's the part like at the beginning where she gets taken out, and so he's like, oh man, this one-on-one match between Io Sky and Asuka is really good, but why is Charlotte Flair coming back to interrupt it?
Hey, what do you think about like the mist that supposedly took her out in the beginning of the match?
If I remember correctly, I remember seeing that like most of it missed and like went into her hair more so, like a blue streak.
Most of it missed, MISSED, and wound up in her hair. Yes, it's true, Jack.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think that's how that was supposed to go, when I saw it. And it was just funny to see Charlotte like selling it, which of course, in this business, you gotta continue on even if something messes up,
Yeah, I was so mad about that too. Hey, and then like, cause you know how the phones are like listening to us, right, Jack, and like reading our minds and all that. Instagram, I'm mad about Charlotte botching a mist, and then Instagram goes, "Hey, remember this scene from Raw when Tajiri missed a Triple H and it was so bad he was practically taking it in the mouth?" Like, his face was all green. It was incredible. And I'm like, that's how you take a miss, dagnabbit.
Oh man. Something also that to take note of is that especially during like this match, there was a lot of more product placement, like more
Yeah.
ads and stuff, and it's just like,
Yeah.
my goodness, these people, they can't resist it.
What were they advertising in this match?
I think this one was like Pizza Hut, I think it was.
I think you're right. Oh my goodness.
And then I think later on there was like Slim Jim like promotional material and all that, and I'm
With
just
LA
like,
Knight.
yeah, I was like, oh my goodness. But getting into the actual match, what did you think, sir?
I love the parts where Charlotte was missing.
Very much feel the same, especially because, you know, a lot of people are going to think we're being hard, but like even people like speaking on it online were like, this isn't pay-per-view Charlotte showing up to give a good match. This is TV Charlotte just phoning it in.
Ooh-wee. Oh my.
And I mean, you know, it's just crazy to think that there's like a group of wrestlers out there. Like there's plenty of wrestlers that have that, oh gosh, what's the word I'm looking at? That reputation of like, there's a distinct difference between how they wrestle on TV and pay-per-view.
And sometimes, Jack, it's like when they know they're going to win and when they know they're going to lose.
Oh, man. But happy to see Io retain, especially you're continuing that story of like Bayley almost costing her, you know, but, you know, she helps her win. And we see Io retain, thankfully. And just like any match involving Charlotte Flair, you got to get your mandatory shot of Charlotte looking sad or angry that she lost. You got to keep getting that camera shot every single time, right, sir?
Hey, I'm reading CBS Sports summaries of the matches as we go on, and this reminds me that there were some like sloppy moments, you know? I'm thinking of one where Asuka's coming off the top rope. Charlotte goes for a kick, I think, and like, you know, doesn't get as much of it as we all hoped, right?
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
Charlotte, indeed.
It's a bit of sloppy match. I'm just waiting for the eventual Io and Asuka singles match.
One. Or the Io Bayley. Let's go, you know?
Yeah. But moving on to our next match, you mentioned it when we were talking about the Slim Jim advertisement. We got John Cena and LA Knight facing off against the Bloodline, Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa.
We have arrived to the part of the night, Jack. I told you before we started recording that there was one match that I didn't fast forward through, but at this point, Jack, my nephew had told me days before that Portal, the game, was available on the Switch. I downloaded it. Have you ever played Portal?
I don't think I have, but I know about it. I've always wanted to play it.
Yeah, I always have too. And he told me, hey, actually, part 1 and 2 for $20 available on the Switch. So, Jack, listen, I love me my LA Knight. John Cena's okay. I don't know what's going on with the Usos nowadays. I started playing Portal.
Me and my dad.
This is a house show of a match that, like, even in the setup, and I'm like, I'm almost done with Portal.
Yeah, me and my dad sort of felt similar. Like, we watched a bit of it, but for the most part, we were just, like, kind of tuned out of it, you know? I mean, it's a cool spot for LA Knight, you know, helping him get over even more with the crowd, you know, putting him in a spot with John Cena. But
yes.
For the most part, nothing too special from the match, you know?
Yeah, what did you think of it, though?
I thought
like
it was
any
fairly
moments
decent.
or spots?
I thought it was fairly decent, but I don't remember too much from it, you know?
Yeah.
But
the good guys come out on top.
Yeah.
There was no Roman to be seen. And I wonder here, Jack, who do you think's having a better, like, you know, post tag team run? Jay or Jimmy?
I definitely say Jimmy, not Jimmy, Jay, just because Jimmy doesn't really have a lot of good stuff to work with, you know, considering that, like, the storyline never really made sense of, like, why he went back to Roman, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just didn't make sense when it happened. I I guess, like, if people can inform me on if there's been any development on the weekly shows, but for me, as like a pay-per-view only watcher, it's like, I don't see much of that development. And even like in the promo packages that they show, which I don't think there was one for this one, but like, I'm just like, I'm left confused because I'm just like, why, like, whereas like with Jay, it's like, we understand why he left, we understand why he split, and why he's on the path he is now. Whereas with Jimmy, we're just sort of left with like the continuation, yet forgetting, like almost as if they're continuing and saying, yeah, forget that part that he was also with Jay turning on Roman,
Yeah.
Like, they're making it look like it was only Jay that turned on him, and like we're just sort of left confused with what's going on with Jimmy.
If I can make sense of it, right? I get the sense that Jimmy stopped Jay from being corrupted by, the power that comes with being the head of the table. And now Jimmy has found himself being corrupted by the exact same power. With Roman being gone, somebody needed to be calling the shots, right? So he's pushing Paul Heyman around. He's got Solo at his side. He's going to be set straight when Roman comes back. If Roman ever comes back, Roman's never coming back.
Yeah.
I like to tease a buddy at work who thinks that Roman Reigns and Rock are going to fight. I go, uh-huh. And I'm sure you're right there with folks who thought Mephisto was going to come out on WandaVision and think that the mother's going to come out on Ahsoka.
Yeah, we've been thinking about Roman and The Rock for like 2 years now, and it's never happened.
I'm just saying. Don't hold your breath.
Come on. We got Brock versus Roman, like, rematch before we even got that,
Yeah.
So, Roman's nowhere to be found. He'll probably be here for Survivor Series. Likely, maybe. I don't know. Do they consider Survivor Series a Big Four pay-per-view at this point?
Ooh. Or
it feels like Money in the Bank replaced it.
I was just about to say Money in the Bank.
Oh, man. But, moving on to our main event, which goes to show you just how short this pay-per-view has been and kind of how much it's blown by. We have the other world champion, the champion that they had to create because Roman's never there. We have Seth Rollins as the champion defending his title against Shinsuke Nakamura. And I didn't know this was going to be like a no disqualification or street fight. I don't know what the stipulation was. I just didn't know it was going to involve, weapons. Which, as I'm looking, it was a last man standing match.
Correct, Jack.
Yeah, I didn't know this.
Right? Seth has got a bad back. Right? So... Yeah. He's going to be put down for the 10 count.
That's something I want to talk about. And given the time on this episode, I think we should have enough time to fit in this episode after discussing this match. There is a conversation I want to have involving this storyline with Seth Rollins. But getting into the match itself, there's also the looming threat that Damian Priest could potentially cash in. Especially given the last man standing stipulation. A lot of people thought it was very likely,
But I think we got a shot backstage of him talking about it. He's mad he lost the tag titles. He says, I ain't gonna leave empty-handed. And Rhea talks him out of it. He says, she says, you're banged up. Give me the briefcase. So I think actually, that we could have been swerved. So I guess it's always looming in the background, right?
Yeah. But overall, what do you think of this match, sir?
They got my hopes up, Jack. Shinsuke looked strong. He was getting all the shots in. And you're right. This one involved a lot more weapons than their last match, right? When I saw the nunchucks, I'm like, uh-oh. We're going into goofy territory. This doesn't look good for Shinsuke. But guess what he started doing? He started laying it into Seth with them nunchucks. He was hitting them hard.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. And then, we talked about the mist from Asuka not hitting Charlotte well. Well, they were like, hey, let's make up for it. Let's have Shinsuke Nakamura blow red mist into Seth Rollins' face because I guess I get the Muda influence, but at the same time, it just feels a bit confusing for Nakamura to be using the mist.
Like, you mean because it wouldn't put anybody down on their back for 10 seconds, you mean?
Yeah, I guess so, but then again, he does it from the top of a ladder to cause him to fall through the table, so...
That's right. See, so look at that, Jack. There's a ton of logic there.
Yeah, I
It's a
guess so.
surprise spot. He took it way better. And the color dictates the pain or the effect, of course, right?
Yeah.
I forget what red does. And
Yeah.
and Charlotte's was green. You can tell by the roots of her hair.
Oh man. We also got that one spot where Seth Rollins like fell when like they were fighting the crowd, and the audience
Yes.
decided to expose that there was a giant like mattress at the bottom.
Yeah, right. Hey, but listen, if his back is supposed to be as bent up as it is, landing on anything is supposed to, cause some pain.
Yeah, but we get Seth Rollins retaining as he hits a Falcon Arrow.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, he retains. He continues to be champion. No Nakamura win. I saw a lot of people like questioning why like a lot of people want Seth Rollins to drop the belt already. And I think it's like a combination of things that you and I have talked about on the show, like we've gone through the long reign with Roman and now Gunther. We'd like to see some more shorter reigns. And also it's just this thing of like sometimes especially with like Seth, it always seems like whenever he gets that world title as a babyface, his runs always struggle because like the crowds lose interest, and I think it's a thing of like, for whatever reason, whenever he's babyface, it just doesn't click versus when he's a heel champion, like people love his reigns, but the babyface thing just doesn't work out as well.
And like the story they're trying to tell on Raw with like Adam Pearce is like, Seth, you're just trying too hard. And he's like, I got to for the people. Right? I don't know. It's just so frustrating, Jack. Like they busted the Finn Balor in the summer on us again. I didn't think they'd get me again, but they got me again. And you know what though? Thinking about Balor, and he should have won in summer, right? I really thought, oh, you know what? Maybe the consolation prize was his tag team championship victory, right?
Yeah.
So with this, Shinsuke looking as better than he's ever looked, I wonder what's next for him, right? I wonder, like, does he go for the U.S. title? I don't see him dethroning Gunther, but I see him dethroning the guy who dethrones Gunther in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I definitely wonder where he goes from here. And the conversation I wanted to have when it came to Rollins, from what we hear, that back injury seems pretty serious, but he's fighting through it. And I told my dad, I was like, it kind of confuses me a bit. We saw like a similar thing with Thunder Rosa when she was champion trying to fight through it. We saw a similar thing with Britt Baker, like even currently, like we see like a similar thing where like she's kind of had injuries, especially with her back, but she continues wrestling. Now I can't remember the last time we've seen Britt Baker other than All In maybe, so maybe she is taking a break, but like we've seen this theme of like different wrestlers pushing through injuries and all that, and it makes me wonder like why, if it's inhibiting your ability as a wrestler, if it's causing your production to go down in a sense, if a lot of people feel you've gotten worse because you're trying to fight through these injuries, is it worth pushing through that to continue going, like these wrestlers that have that mindset of continuing going. And my brother brought up a point that, it's like perhaps it's that paranoia of thinking that like you take a break, someone's going to come take your spot, like in the case of Seth Rollins, he got this world title, but if he's injured and has to take time off, someone takes his spot, and there's no guarantee. Like for Seth Rollins, obviously he can come back. It's not like a situation like Balor where he gets injured and thus the company never trusts in him afterwards, but like that could be the mindset for a lot of these guys is like, I don't want to leave because my spot could easily be taken and there's no guarantee I get back in that spot,
Yeah. I think that's a good point to consider. Do you have your own hypothesis as to what drives somebody to be working through pain or through injuries like this?
I mean, to me, it's like I sort of understand that sort of mindset of wanting to push through, be strong for the fans, deliver for the fans, not wanting to be out for long. But for me personally, I just don't think that mindset makes sense because, again, it's like if your ability is being inhibited by an injury, you don't play through it, like I'll take it to the football world right now. Joe Burrow has apparently been like fighting through an injury and his play has been pretty bad up until like this last week. It was like he's been terrible, and it's like, why are you like you're making your team's chances worse by fighting through that injury, you know? And the example that we're now seeing on AEW is Bryan Danielson and Adam Copeland, who we were also seeing it with his second run in WWE, where it's like, look at how long those two had to stay out, and look at how, like, you know, the difference in like having that time of resting away from injuries and allowing your body to truly recover, you know? Like you and I have talked about it before, and we especially talked about it when COVID was going on. We were saying, let these guys go home and rest, you know, from all these potential injuries, obviously during COVID, you know, prevent the spread and all that. So it's like a similar thinking of like, a lot of wrestlers should look to them and be like, well, maybe it isn't as bad to take time off because it could help me like fully recover and get back to 100% so that I'm wrestling at 100%, you know?
Yeah. So to offer a different point of view, you know, there's definitely like I can't lose my spot. And think of Seth. He's been out for a long time. Remember, what was he out for the first time he went out? It was his like leg.
His leg.
That
was on a house show.
Sunset Powerbomb on Kane.
Yeah.
You know, so he's done that extended time. You think, I don't want to go out again for a long time, right? Like, he knows what that feels like. And he's on the run of his career now. But then I wonder if it's not him, right? If Shinsuke had won, who stands up to Shinsuke? Let's say Seth goes and takes a break and takes a nap and like and heals, right? Who goes up against Shinsuke? And the WWE have like a really big problem with like top stars, you know what I mean? Like baby faces, contenders, right? Like we've been able to throw some monsters of the week at Seth for a couple of months now. It was Finn for a quarter of the year, right?
Yeah.
But like, who next? You know?
Yeah.
I don't think they're set up for that. And you think, God, if Shinsuke wins, people tuning into Raw? No. They're like, oh, is Seth not on TV tonight? And, oh, you got Cody tied up in a tag team? You know what? I'm going to maybe see what's on football, right?
Yeah, I could
That's
definitely
my wondering. If they were more sure-footed in whom they got in line to be like, you know, the next side or challenger, right? Also, Jack, we in this funky part of the year where we're waiting for a Royal Rumble, aren't we?
Yeah.
Before they commit to anything.
Not only that, but we're in the thick of making WrestleMania plans months ahead, and you know, getting them set to not change. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're trying to get stuff in place so that things will not like get changed unless injuries happen. You know, like they're trying to get plans set in stone, so they're trying to set up a lot of different guys.
If you had a magic wand, Jack, and you picked exactly who was going to dethrone Seth Rollins, who would it be?
That's really a tough one because, like you mentioned, like they have this issue of not being or like struggling to build up a lot of these like top stars. Like it's not the issue of like building up, it's not like you look at the roster and you're like, well, I can't really imagine any of these guys, you know, winning like be like dethroning Seth, especially because like the way you put it perfectly, you know, it's that thing of like they'll build someone up just to be beaten, you know, like it's gonna be a similar thing where it's like if you see like someone being built up, like it's gonna come as a surprise probably if they beat Seth, because in the eyes of the fans they're probably just gonna be thinking, oh, this is another guy being built up to lose. And right now I can't really think of anyone that could beat Seth, only other than like Gunther once he loses the IC title, you know, like perhaps he loses it at SummerSlam, and then like, if you don't really have any plans for Rollins at Mania, you could have him lose it at the Royal Rumble, you know? Like, that's a big enough show for him to lose a world title, and, you know, it'd be a big moment for Gunther.
Damian Priest is another person who's, like, getting more and more ready as time goes on. And I guess the big question is, right, is Damian Priest somebody who's going to walk into WrestleMania as champion? Or, right, they're going to hotshot it, give him his moment of glory, take it right back by January.
Yeah, especially considering the fact that he's not getting any younger, you know?
Oh, it's true. Jade Cargill beats Seth Rollins. Let's go. Hey, CM Punk beat Seth Rollins. Let's go.
Oh gosh, you ready for Survivor Series in Chicago? Isn't it crazy that like we went, what was it, like 7 years without CM Punk, and in the past like 2-3 years we could potentially have covered 3 returns of CM Punk in that span?
I love the idea of him coming back to WWE going, listen, welcome back. We'd love to have you back. You're going to do every single thing we say.
Oh man, I saw like they said something hilarious that like I saw like a report that they were like, oh, he has to like clear things up with like certain members, like especially like Roman, and people were just like, oh, he has to check in with Roman before he comes in. I saw someone go, they told him he has to acknowledge the tribal chief before he can come back.
He's got to check in with Jimmy. He's got to check in and acknowledge Jimmy.
Oh man, and it's just funny to think that like, you know, there's also like people try and like downplay it, but like there's a couple wrestlers in that locker room that don't like him too, you know, like on the very same level as a lot of the guys in AEW, like what's it called, Kevin Owens doesn't like that guy, and it's not a storyline thing, it's a real life thing of like, you know, Punk thought he was like better than him to like, he like you listen to the story Kevin Owens tells you, and you're like, this is a very like condescending story of someone like thinking they had the power to tell him, you know, this and that.
Kevin Owens, I feel like, is the spiritual equivalent of Eddie Kingston in WWE.
Yeah, very much so.
How many minutes we got, Jack?
We got 3 minutes left on this episode.
What did you think of the show?
I thought it was decent, but definitely one you could have skipped and not missed much.
I agree.
There's obviously the big title change of the tag titles, which would be a surprise the next time you tune in. But for the most part, it's just like, you don't really miss much, especially because, you know, it's not to say anything mean about the rest of the show, but there's no, like, match of the year contenders on here. There's no, like, matches you got to go out of your way to watch. To me, it's just like, it was very much filler in a sense.
Speaking of matches you got to see, are you going to watch Crown Jewel?
I believe I will, more than likely. Just waiting to see how that show shapes out.
And you know what? We're just talking about dethroning Seth. Drew McIntyre, a meaner, wearing a lot of black and scowling more Drew McIntyre. Could he do it, Jack?
I mean, we thought the same thing when he was going against Roman at Clash of the Castle, so I don't know anymore.
We have been burned so many times.
Oh, man. But, you know, I'm happy to see they're building him up, and is he going to be another monster of the week for Seth, or is he actually going to beat him? You know, that's going to be an interesting storyline to see. And, of course, also, Survivor Series, seeing how that shapes out. Reports that War Games is coming back, so a lot of interesting stuff to look forward to.
Yep.
But with that being said, and 2 minutes remaining left in this episode, I've been Jack, joined by my guest,
Mr. Solis.
Thank you all for joining for this episode of the Call It Anything podcast, and we'll catch y'all next time.